Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And the weeks are really not disappointing us, Dr. Lopkin, are they?
No, not at all. There's lots to talk about.
Do you remember nostalgically when we first started Carnivore Bites? Sometimes we'd be scratching our heads. Yeah, there was Trump and the stupid tweets about dummy stuff. But it was kind of like, what are we going to talk about? There's no shortage, is there, my friend?
No, there's no shortage whatsoever now.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, yes.
Exactly.
And his name is Mr. Biden. So, internationally, Justin Trudeau, the boxer, the person that really never had a job, harkens back, at least in my impression, to Barack Obama, whose father, at least, was the prime minister, a failed one, though. He got reelected, even though the majority of Canadians despise him. But the way the election protocol is in Canada, he gets another term, although he doesn't have the majority in the other governing bodies. Your opinion of the esteemed Justin?
Trudeau has shown himself to be a buffoon, and Canadians have come out against him time and time again. He's come up with his vaccine passport mandates and entire province. I mean, the businesses all across Vancouver actually came out and said, yeah, we're just going to ignore you. So, I mean, he doesn't even have his own countrymen having his back. They're actively just pretending he doesn't exist.
Okay, but isn't it very similar to the United States? You have the elitist coasts, which I'll consider to be, Toronto, Montreal, and the rest of Canada. They have nothing in common anymore. Forget about language. They have nothing in common. Same with Middle America versus the coastal America. Isn't it really getting to the point of we have nothing? It's like a divorce. You're married for 30 years and you just don't have anything in common anymore.
Yeah, there's a huge chasm between mainstream America and the coasts. It is very difficult to describe all of these people as one country. There's been such a split, and that split seems to be growing.
I agree. I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's gone beyond. I hate to bring up that analogy. It's like a breakup of a relationship. Sometimes you get the tipping point, and there's just you might not even hate each other or dislike it. You just don't have anything in common. There's no reason to be together. And I look at West Coast with Gavin Newsom and Chucky Schumer in New York.
Well,
their views have nothing in common with mine.
No, and I was absolutely amazed. I saw an interview with a member of the Democratic National Committee who was talking about strategy for the midterm elections. And he actually said that the Newsom recall showed that the Democrats can hold on to the Senate and the House because they have the power to do this. And it's like, really, you're comparing California with the rest of the country. And he was just completely oblivious to the fact that the rest of the country looks at California as the ugly stepsister that, this is a bipolar state that doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I agree. But it's very sad. Again, it's a weird thing. I'm kind of a history buff. And the California of the 60s, I think it ended probably in the 90s. But what a beautiful place, the land of milk and honey. It really was the golden state. It was opportunities. Unless you're a total dumbass and you move out to California in 1963, yeah, the opportunities are endless. Now it shows you what liberalism is like a bacteria. It goes into something and eventually it poisons itself. Am I not correct?
But actually, what you're saying isn't completely true. And it goes to show how much of California is based on image and based on, the movies and Hollywood. Because California was never all this great. California is essentially a parasite. The only reason it exists is because it was able to take water from other states, to pull people in from other states. It's basically just a parasite sucking things in from the United States. And it's always been that way. It just put this golden sheen on to sucker people in.
Okay, but all I'm saying is that if you look at Los Angeles, 1965, San Francisco, beautiful places are now shitholes.
Yes, they were beautiful.
That's
because
liberalism. That's not parasitic. That is just what liberalism does. It is a bacteria. It goes into something and eventually kills itself.
Yeah, I mean, those places were great because they were new. You know, they didn't have the decay yet. Now,
exactly.
Now you're seeing, well, this is what happens. In fact, I sent out a tweet last week tagging Apple, because during the Apple presentation where they were showing off new products, Tim Cook actually started it out with how proud they were of California. And this was the day of the recall election. So obviously he was trying to, pitch Newsom. And I tweeted, really? What are you most proud of? The rising crime rates? The rising poverty? The feces in the streets?
Yeah, but you're missing a quintessential point. And the quintessential point is when you're at the top, it's the economics of poverty. When you are on the top, you benefit from a increasingly expanding lower class. You don't have to pay the repercussions. Right. You're in a gated community. You get unskilled workers. All the benefits to you're laying in a feather bed while the other ones everyone else is living increasingly in a shithole.
Exactly. That's
exactly
the liberal
what
hypocrisy. Yeah, that's the liberal hypocrisy.
Speaking of hypocrisy, Nancy Pelosi, who basically came out with a statement that capitalism has failed in many ways. That's the same person that went into Congress worth maybe $500,000. Now she's worth like 20 million. Gee, shucks, how did that happen? And the person during the COVID pulled out Haagen-Dazs, or even makes Haagen-Dazs look like Friendly's ice cream, some brand of ice cream out of her $1 million refrigerator.
Yeah.
Talk about being out of touch. That is liberalism, the quintessential liberal elite, is it not?
It really is. And if you take a look at the liberal elite, the ones that yell the most about capitalism, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Michael Moore, these folks are making millions off of capitalism. So it's good for them, but not for anybody else.
They also have a common theme. AOC, a bartender loser, I'm sorry. When you're 27, 28 years old, college graduate, and you're tending bar, you haven't actually hit the apex of humanity. Michael Moore, I give him full credit for Roger and Me, great documentary. But at that time in 88, he was down and out. I give him all the credit in the world for doing what he did, but he was down and out. He had $35,000 to his name.
Right, and Roger and Me was a complete fraud. All his
documentaries are frauds, but my point is, they all have a history of Loserville. Some of them got lucky, some of them didn't. AOC, luckier than hell, probably one of the dumbest people ever. You just shake your head. Speaking of the dumbest people ever, Chucky Schumer said that we shouldn't deport the Haitians. Meanwhile, he's at the Hamptons drinking Chardonnay and having a steak tartare. Comment on that, please?
They need more butlers and waiters. Yeah, they need more butlers and waiters in the Hamptons. So, of course, let's bring the Haitians in.
What would happen if a Haitian or a black person showed up at little Chucky's party with Nancy? How fast would they be arrested? Deported,
of course.
Executed. Unbelievable. So speaking of scary, we're not that far away. Time does fly, especially when you get to be my age, from Halloween. Talking about scary, Boris Johnson from the UK and Biden had a press conference or a meeting in the White House, and Johnson asked, okay, because he's has a functioning cerebrum and everything else, said, I'll take some questions, a normal thing. They actually shut the mic off. They said, if that doesn't, CNN would talk about whatever, locusts in Indiana, whatever, or some racist thing. But if that does not scare people, that's scarier than any vampire on Halloween.
Yeah, Biden's avoiding taking questions since the Afghanistan fiasco has been absolutely horrifying, but it has had one very good side effect, and that is that he has alienated his allies in the media. So now that they can't get their questions answered, they're finally turning against him. They realized, oh, shoot, we backed the wrong horse. Now you're seeing articles, oh, the Hunter Biden laptop story was actually real. Now you're seeing them go after Biden for Afghanistan.
Well, let me comment on one thing.
He's lost his cover.
Yes, I agree. We've talked about this before. Liberalism or liberals do so much better of a job of circling the wagons. But one thing about liberalism, unlike conservatism, a conservative will hang with you. You know what I'm saying? Probably, and like Nixon, hung on people to his detriment, okay, or protected people. Liberals will cut, once you're of no longer service to them, they'll cut you off like a bad habit. That, I believe, is what the media knows, that Biden is now a liability. Do the gaming. Going forward, it's only going to get worse. So you need to get rid of him, not literally, but figuratively, and move on and create the next big thing, which is, who's the guy? O'Rourke in Texas.
Yes. Beto O'Rourke thinks he's going to run for governor of Texas. Hispanics in Texas have been fleeing the Democratic Party in record numbers. African Americans in Texas have been fleeing the Democratic Party in record numbers, but he thinks he's going to bring a Democrat to the governor's mansion.
But how about the hubris? The hubris of Kamala, okay? The hubris of Mr. O'Rourke. People who have done literally nothing. Or what has he done, O'Rourke? Beto O'Rourke, he changed his name, and I have no idea. He's accomplished nothing. He's an idiot. No, he's an idiot. He is an idiot. He does the whole thing with the skateboard. He is an opportunistic, shallow, not very intelligent moron.
No. What Beto O'Rourke is, he spent, I think it was 3 terms in Congress, and he thinks he's Barack Obama Jr. So he's, it's like, oh, he's just like Barack Obama. He can be president. He can be governor, except he's not as well spoken as Obama was. He does not have the machine pushing him. So
I think your last point's the biggest thing. Obama, can tell you ice in the winter, but he also had people, and we'll learn about this 50 years from now, some very powerful people that I don't know behind him. You don't go from community organizer to president of the United States for yucks.
Right. And his coattails were long enough that's what got Biden into the White House now. O'Rourke doesn't have any of that. He's not Obama, but he thinks he is. And so since leaving Congress, he's made a career out of losing elections.
Yeah, I don't know why he left Congress to stay there at the gravy train with gerrymandering. He's not a very intelligent person. He's also an elitist, born with a silver spoon, never worked a day in his life. And it's just amazing, the hubris of, I'm qualified to be governor. I wouldn't let him change my oil. Now, moving on, we have the border crisis. which is basically increasingly being harder to ignore by the mainstream media. Am I not correct?
It is. They have tried to cover up what was going on. In fact, I'm not sure if you heard about this or not, but Fox News had been using drone footage to take
Yes.
video of the area, and the FAA suddenly told them, no, we're blocking the airspace. You can no longer send up drones to get video coverage. Well, Ted Cruz was absolutely infuriated by this. So he walked into the area with his phone and filmed video for Fox to use to show what was going on.
Yeah, but this is very dangerous because you could have President Carter in as president, and the FBI was always thought of above everything. All these organizations were thought, the FDA, the list goes on. Okay, obviously they're in the hip pocket of the Democratic Party. If it was Trump, you couldn't get enough drones there.
Right. Well, again, this all started under the Obama administration. Remember, Obama weaponized these agencies against his enemies. He weaponized the NSA to hack into Angela Merkel's phone. He weaponized the IRS to go after conservative political groups. There were several. He weaponized the FBI to go after the media. If you remember, they went into the Associated Press to get their phone records. Obama took all of these government agencies and turned them into political operatives. And they were used against Trump, and now Biden's trying to use them, except Biden's completely incompetent, so they're not even being used well.
Exactly. Well, moving on, I think that it's by the way, speaking of Biden, his approval rating has dropped from, and this is a big plunge, from 53% to 43% in less than a month, and his standing with independents is below 35%. Not good,
and
Uncle Joe.
Not good. And in swing districts, congressional swing districts, his approval rating is even lower. In Iowa, he has a 31% approval rating, according to the Des Moines News. So, yeah, his approval rating is dropping faster and faster. And it is absolutely making it difficult for any of the left's plans to get through Congress, because now people, the moderates don't want to be anywhere near Biden.
I don't think, my prediction is, I think the infrastructure bill will be a whittled down bill. If Trump gets out of the way, I think the Republican Party is in very good shape. But the operative situation is, I'll ask you the question: does Trump get out of the way? Because I think he's got too much baggage, and deservingly so. That shit he pulled January 6th, yeah, okay, he didn't directly call for an insurrection, but hey, dumbass, that was pretty stupid.
Well, again,
and the rest of his shit with the tweets and all this crap.
The tweets, honestly, over time, that's going to be less and less, because now people are turning against Twitter because, well, the Republican president can't tweet, but the Taliban can. So, and more, the things that Trump were saying, now the media is forced to admit, oh my God, he was right. Now, I don't want to see him run for president again. I think he's too divisive, but a lot of his baggage is falling by the wayside because he turned out to be right.
I agree. His biggest faux pas was January 6th. I'm sorry. Getting involved in that was just bad judgment. Just and again, don't do it.
You and I disagree on that, because if you watch the video, he called for peaceful protests. The FBI has cleared him of any actual involvement. It was just optics. And guess what? Optics change. So
okay,
I don't want to see him run for president. I think he's too big of a distraction. But What's going on with the Democrats is that they are getting to the point where they will beat themselves because the moderates and the wackos on the squad will not get along. There's been some really interesting things trying to be pushed through. The squad refused to move forward on the infrastructure bill unless the spending dropped $1 billion for Israel's dome defense. So if you wanted evidence that the squad was, essentially a terrorist organization, they're trying to let Hamas blow up Israel. What I loved is the deal that was cut for their climate change initiative. The climate change initiative is now going to be written up by the head of the Senate Committee on Climate. Well, the head of the committee is Joe Manchin. There's no way he's going to wipe out coal, given that that's where West Virginia has its economy.
We certainly hope not. But wait a second. The bigger issue is, okay, the Israeli Iron Dome. What does that have to do with infrastructure?
It's not that it has to do with infrastructure.
That they wouldn't support it.
It's that the only way to get the infrastructure bill passed is to go through reconciliation. So to use reconciliation, it has to be a spending bill, and they're trying to tie everything together. The money to keep the government open, the wacko Green New Deal, foreign spending, because the left knows if they separate the Green New Deal from actual infrastructure and spending for our allies, they don't have the votes to get it in.
Well, where's Rich Blumenthal, our esteemed senator from Connecticut? Why, how come he never missed a camera? Why he's not speaking out about the Iron Dome defunding?
I don't think he's going to speak out on anything that's going on in the House. Realistically, the bill does not have the votes to get through the Senate. Right now, it doesn't even have the votes to get out of the House. So I don't think he's going to say anything until it's absolutely necessary, because God forbid he should actually choose a side in this. Remember, he's up for re-election next year. He could lose votes.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I love, you talk about elitist liberals and people that know much better than we do about everything and anything morally, economically, business-wise, and that's Bill Gates. He can't preach to you enough, and he can't exalt his great wisdom and moral turpitude for anyone. And oh my God, I'm shocked, Dr. Lofton, that in his divorce hearings, he's been tied to Mr. Epstein.
Yes,
that's surprise.
That's one of the big reasons that his wife left him, because it started to come out, his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. She was absolutely horrified at his behavior and divorced him.
Wait a second, though. He's the creator of Microsoft. He's the most brilliant person, at least in his own estimation, in the world. I'll say I'm not the world's greatest billionaire or the smartest person in the world like he thinks he is. But I know when I go to a strip joint, there may be naked women. I mean, I know that's a stretch. But, if you go to like Jeffrey Epstein's, one time I could say, okay, I didn't know. I thought it was when you see naked 14-year-old girls, you might kind of draw some conclusions. Am I incorrect, Dr. Lofton?
Yes, you would.
Being too out there.
But the fact of the matter is, Bill Gates is not terribly bright. People think he's bright because of the successes that Microsoft had. Remember, when Microsoft started, DOS was essentially stolen from other programmers. Windows was stolen from Xerox and from Apple. Bill Gates is the man that famously said, in the future, computers will be so big and so expensive that the only people that will have them are the royal kings of Europe.
I
Bill
think
Gates
he missed
has,
that by just an inch, didn't he?
yeah, Bill Gates is not a terribly bright person. Most of the success that Microsoft had was due to Paul Allen, who was Gates's partner in Microsoft.
And
Gates
truly
gets the
brilliant.
credit. Yes, Gates gets the credit because he was out there as the programmer. Now, I mean, I met Bill Gates years ago when he was the keynote speaker at PC Expo in New York. And I would say it was about 7 of us or so had hung back after his speech, and the 8 of us were talking. And this wasn't a confrontational conversation. This was talking about tech, which was what the expo was about. And Bill Gates couldn't even handle a casual conversation with people. He was rocking back and forth. He was very nervous. This is not somebody whose advice should be taken. And let's not forget that over the past year, he's also spewed lots of advice about COVID, all of which has turned out to be wrong.
Yeah, but people think of him because of the Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as this moral compass. And my original point is, and I want you need to comment on this, Dr. Larkin. You go to Epstein's once, I get it. Twice, 3 times. If you're the genius of the world, well, let's just put it another way. If you have an IQ above 100, you're going to realize this is a sex exploitation, psychopathic place.
Yeah, no.
End of story. And you couldn't get out of there friggin' fast enough. How does that sound?
Bill Gates knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. He was there willingly, of his own free will. That's why Melinda Gates divorced him.
No
So
question.
it's not a question of did he know. He knew.
And he participated, but he has enough money to cover it up.
Right.
Now we got the abuse with the gymnastics team, another blight on the FBI. Not that they need any more.
Yeah, the gymnastics of the U.S. Olympic team abuse had been going on for years. The gymnasts reported it to the FBI, and the agent in charge of the investigation buried it. Why did he bury it? Well, apparently, he had a meeting with the head of the American Olympic Committee, and he was burying this story in exchange for the job of head of security at the American Olympic Committee. So you have a corrupt FBI agent basically throwing these women to the wolves in order to advance his career.
Let me take a step back. Wait, hold on. Okay. Think about the swamp and the elites. Could you, and this is a rhetorical question, obviously, could you ever jeopardize these young girls for your own advancement?
No, of course not.
I mean, what kind of a person does that take? You must be morally vacant to sleep at night because you want to get a promotion. I'm sorry, everyone wants to be successful, but to do that, you are a pig.
Absolutely. But, the swamp goes deeper, because at the same time that these women were testifying in front of Congress, people involved with the Clinton campaign from 2016 were being indicted for filing false reports with the same FBI to kickstart the Trump investigation. Now, what does all of this have in common? Well, obviously, the FBI never looked into the quality of the investigation they were getting. They just went, oh, well, let's investigate a major presidential candidate. Remember, he wasn't even the presumptive candidate at the time. All of this, the gymnastics scandal, the lack of investigation by the FBI, the overall incompetence and corruption All of this happened on the watch of James Comey. He is
Yes,
the common denominator in all
a,
of this.
a creature of the swamp. And as we were saying before this episode began, that being older than you, I grew up with the FBI with Efron Zivlis Jr. thinking it was above everything. It was an individual. J. Edgar Hoover. I know he had a million flaws, but this overseeing agency that was politically blind, you can toss that crap out the window, along with the IRS, and you can basically have an entire list. And I guess the ending question is, how the hell did this happen that you have almost every agency, including our military, that was never in this situation, is all in the woke liberal Democratic camp? How the hell did that happen?
It all happened under the command of Barack Obama. He weaponized government agencies to go after his enemies. He made this woke mandate, basically, to all of these agencies. And now we are seeing the blowback. And the thing is, there's still people who will swear up and down, oh, Obama had no scandals, which is complete bullshit. There were loads of scandals, but anytime any scandal came up, he played the race card. Oh, you're only against him because he's black. Well, guess what? It wasn't because he was an African American. It's because he was incompetent and he was corrupt. And now we are seeing all of this come out.
No question. Probably one of the most damaging presidents in our history. Could have set the trajectory back like no one else. And I just we've already touched on this, but in conclusion, Dr. Lotkin, the media, how long do they hang on to Biden? Because it's getting more precarious as not the weeks, the minutes go on.
They're dropping him like a hot potato. As far as I know, the only ones that are still hanging on are CNN and MSNBC.
No, CNN, I think MSNBC is the one we need like Quaaludes to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, they're unbelievable. CNN, I don't watch it a lot, but I think they're at least reporting a little bit of this. And I see as the days go on, they're opportunists. They know they can't hold on to this shit forever.
Over the past week, the Washington Post turned their back on him and went after him. Gayle King on CBS This Morning hammered Jen Psaki, made her look like the idiot she is.
She's a moron.
Yeah. So the media is
and by the way,
she needs to go.
She needs to go to a real hairdresser. Hello, you're the head. You're the chief.
But they all need to just be removed from office.
Say that again.
They all need to be removed from office.
Yeah, but then you get Kamala.
Psaki, Milley. Yeah, I mean that's the unfortunate thing, is that the incompetence goes so deep, you'd literally have to impeach everybody.
And I think that I really believe as time goes on, I believe the only smart thing, because Biden doesn't do anything, his advisors did, is get Kamala in there. She was never good on the campaign. It's the poison pill. Because people would say, okay, the 25th Amendment, this guy's clearly not ready for prime time. If you had anyone competent, check please, but they know you got someone that makes Biden look like a rock star.
Well, no, if this continues on, I think what's going to happen is that in next year's midterm elections, you will see not just the Republicans take both houses, but I think they are going to get a veto-proof majority. And
agreed, 100%.
And then it doesn't matter who's in the White House, because the Republican Congress will be in charge.
Can't happen soon enough. Great edition of Carnivore Bites. I believe we're gaining listeners, aren't we, Dr. Lotkin?
We're growing bit by bit. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts, as well as the Carnivore Radio website. We're also on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and thank our listeners.
We'll see you next week.